All verse rising soul fam. So you ever met individuals who are so one track minded to the point they don't have no creativity and no talent and no soulful vibrational ideas ever because they're soulless vibrational beings? And these type of beings who be like, man, I don't like people who don't even try to do something for themselves. These are the same people who could have a spiritual daughter, a spiritual son, or any spiritual relative of any sort that desires to have an independent business and do things that they desire through their independent business. That person that's one track minded and just do stuff to just conform to the slave owner matrix, just working some regular ass slave owner organizations, they be so mad at their spiritual relative who desires to put all their hours in to their independent business that's of soulful vibrational creativity and ideas that can actually heal the multiverse. Because we all see 9 to 5 jobs and Hollywood and all these different slave owner organizations. They don't do nothing to heal the multiverse, and it brings nothing but sadness. You see Hollywood, police industry, 9 to 5s, military, that stuff brings nothing but sadness. You know what I'm saying? But the relatives who are one track minded, they want their spiritual relative to not be happy and join owner organizations and do things they don't desire, right? Because let me tell you something about these particular people who are one track minded, and they be having secret animosity toward their spiritual soulful vibrational relative who do things that's not of the slave owner society norm, right? So those who choose not to do things of the slave owner society norms and do things that's like out of this world and something that's way beyond comprehension to a one track minded person who has no creativity, man, they really make these one track mind people so angry, man. And one track mindless soulless beings, man, they be so mad at the spiritual person for going for their desires to achieve, to bring into existence, to do in the multiverse, to heal the multiverse like an independent business. And the people that's one track minded, they don't support soulful vibrational beings who do independent business, man. And let me tell you something, man, those one track minded people, man, they be so upset because they couldn't achieve anything in their life, and they had to just settle to conform to a slave owner 9 to 5 and military and shit like that, to the point when they have a spiritual relative that's not like any other soulless vibrational relative of the biological family, they want to downplay that spiritual soulful vibrational relative and do everything to make sure that spiritual relative doesn't be able to be happy with their self-independent business. Because beings who are known as targeted individuals, aka goddesses and god stars of the multiverse, the angel number multiverse per se, you see, targeted individuals, they get no love from their one track minded relative. They don't at all, man. That's the reason why soulful vibrational beings tend to not have so many followers on social media, due to a lack of support from these one track minded, hating ass, animosity, narcissistic ass relatives who don't like their spiritual relative. And let me tell you something about these one track minded people, right? These one track minded people who have the nerve and audacity to tell their spiritual relative subliminally and be like, I just don't like people who don't try to do something for themselves. One track minded relatives who say this, or anybody that's one track minded, they say this towards beings who desire to go for something like a self independent business. These one track minded people, they consider having a 9 to 5 or submitting to the military or any slave owner organization as doing something for themselves. But as soon as a person desires an independent business, to be their own boss and call their own shots and do things on their own time, you see, now it's a problem to these one track minded people. Because one track minded people, they see any individual that has a self independent business doing things that they love, whether it might be art, editing, or anything that's of self-independence that's coming from the soulful vibrational beings, mind, heart, and soul. You see, one track minded people, they don't see people doing independent businesses as doing something for themselves. And this is why I say biological relatives will always be the main ones to hate on your goals you desire and not support. That's why they always say don't mix self-independent That's why they say don't mix self-independent business creativity with family and friends. You know what I'm saying? Because man, the people that you could know since you was a child, like 3 years old, people you could know since you was like 3 years old will not support you if you desire to go for something that's of self-independence, that gives you true happiness, something that expresses your personality. Because it's crazy, man. Like, one track minded relatives, bro, like you see, they don't like the relatives who have self independent businesses, and they don't like their spiritual relatives to express themselves through the things that they desire, because you see a lot of these one track minded, hating ass, demonic ass relatives, they be wanting their spiritual relative to live the slave owner's dreams. They don't want their own spiritual relative, whether it's a spiritual daughter, especially their own sons and daughters. They don't want their sons and daughters that's spiritual to like actually live their own dreams. They want them to live the dreams through the slave owners and shit. Being feeling miserable at a military, feeling miserable at a 9 to 5 and shit, and not doing things that they desire and wasting their potential because they put all their energy into the 9 to 5 and in the military and all these slave owner organizations just to make their one track minded relative happy when they're not even making their own selves happy. You see a lot of your biological relatives that's of the 99.9% that has no creativity, has no soulful vibrational mind, heart, and soulful ideas. You see, 99.9% of your relatives are one track minded people who don't give a fuck about your happiness. That is the truth, man. Because let me tell you something, 99.9% of relatives that don't give a fuck about their soulful vibrational relatives' happiness, they are one track minded, man. And that's just all facts, man. That's just all facts, bro. Because like, it's just like this video I made right here. It's just like this topic right here, man. It's just like this topic, bro. Any relative that subliminally downplays your goals and speak negative of your future is a hater. You feel me? Like, bro, I support a person's decisions that they choose to go with instead of bashing their goals with subliminal hate, downplaying them. Because look, man, anybody that chooses to do something that they desire, and a relative, whether it might be a mom or dad or a sister or brother or uncle or auntie, doesn't like that their own relative to go for something that makes them happy, and they don't consider it as doing something, they don't consider that doing something for themselves. They consider just going for a 9 to 5 and joining slave owner organizations, where it might be fraternity, Freemasonry, Christianity and shit like that. They consider all that slave owner shit as doing something for themselves, when that shit brings nothing but sadness and miserable feelings for like longevity of that spiritual person's life, bro. Like, that's all facts, bro. Like, seriously. I had relatives of mine, I ain't gonna say no names. I had relatives of mine who literally secretly, subliminally had animosity towards me because I choose to do something with myself, going for my happiness of my independent business of art editing and music making, and they subliminally look at me and be like, oh, that's not realistic. One track minded relatives will be the type of people, if they ever hear their spiritual relative go for something that's out of the slave owner society norm, they're gonna be like, why you want to try to go for a self-independent business? That's not a real job. Why don't you try something realistic? Man, that one track minded relative is a hating ass, bitch ass person, man. Like, for real, man. They weak ass. They people like that is weak to me. Anybody who tells you that you should just go for a real job and go for something more realistic, that's a person who conformed to the slave owner matrix for so long and got indoctrinated for so long and been contaminated with the slave owner's way of living and thinking for so long and being so religious for so long, they can't even comprehend their spiritual relative who has creative ideas, be so talented due to training their mind, heart, and soul to come up with an idea to strive with a self-independent business to be happy, and their own one-track minded relative just be hating like a motherfucker. You feel what I'm saying? Bro, it's the reason why I don't talk to 99.9% of my relatives, because 99.9% of my biological relatives, they be having secret animosity towards me, which is why they don't talk to me all the time, because I'm a cool ass person. I'm a highly intelligent, funny, and very soulful vibrational personality of a person. For someone not to talk to me all the time, let me tell you something. If any biological relative doesn't want to help you with your independent business and your talents, they don't give a fuck about you, and they hate your ass secretly, but they don't want to say it to you directly because they know you will beat their ass. Bro, a lot of 99.9% of my biological relatives that don't talk to me all the time, that have secret animosity towards me because I have soulful vibrational ideas with my self-independent business. Man, they don't want to directly tell me, how about you go for something realistic, because they know I will beat their fucking ass and put them out of existence. Like, real talk. I don't play that. I don't deal with people who be trying to crush in their own relatives' dreams, because that fucking one-track minded relative is a motherfucking hater, hating on a spiritual relative that isn't one track minded and desires to do something that makes them happy, right? You know what I'm saying, bro? If I was a person who said I want to join a fraternity, join Freemasonry, join the military, or become a layman's a slave owner police officer that's so indoctrinated, my biological relatives of the 99.9%, they would be all for that shit. But if I choose to go against the slave owner society and do things that's out of the norm and do things that make me happy, and by focusing on my creative ideas and my talents, something that I put my hours into, they gonna hate. Because let me tell you something, any one-track minded relative who didn't take the time out to get to know their own relative, where it might be, especially if they didn't take the time to get to know their own son and daughter that's very talented and creative in a lot of things that they put their hours into, they consider their own son and daughter not doing something for themselves. Any individual that's one-track minded and be like, my own son and daughter don't do something for themselves, and then take the time to go see what their son and daughter's personality is like, see what their mind, heart, and soul is like, and actually help them with their self-independent business, they just made assumptions and hate on their own son and daughter without even realizing it, man. Because there's a lot of people out there that have a son and daughter that hate their own son and daughter because their son and daughter chooses to do something that makes them happy by pursuing a self-independent business that that the rest of the biological family of one-track minded people didn't even try to do with themselves, and they just conform to the slave owner matrix, man. You know what I'm saying? Because 99.9% of biological relatives who hate on their own nephew or niece or son and daughter because they choose to go for an independent business and strive with that and go for that, and then want to help their own child achieve their self independent business and like achieve with their talents, those biological relatives are super lame as fuck. You know what I'm saying? Look, man, my biological relatives, the 99.9% of they ass, they lame as fuck. They lame. I ain't gonna say no names, because why? Let me tell you something, man. None of my relatives, bro, none of my relatives that I knew of, that's of the 99.9%, the relatives of mine who are one-track minded people that don't have no creative ideas, that never even strive to, go for a self-independent business and actually focus on their talents that they have to evolve their potential, they lame as fuck. They didn't give a fuck about my talents. They didn't give a fuck about my self-independent business, because why? They're one-track minded people, bro. That's all facts, man. That's all fucking facts. Because relatives who speak negative about my future and say I won't survive anything is not a relative of mine, and nothing but a soulless vibrational hater that's one-track minded. You feel me? Because a lot of relatives, man, that I knew of always would bash my goals that I choose to go for, and didn't take the time out to get to know me, bro. There's a lot of people out there that don't even talk to their own mom and dad, or don't talk to their own uncles and aunties or whoever, because those one track minded relatives didn't support their self independent business, and told them to go for something realistic, like a hating ass motherfucker, man. Like, come on, bruh. That shit is lame as fuck, bro. I ain't with the hating shit. I ain't with the secret animosity shit that a lot of biological relatives have towards their spiritual, vibrational, targeted individual, soulful, vibrational relative that chooses to do something that makes them happy, right? Because let me tell you something, man. I'm one of the few people who is the most. I'm like one of the few people who's very talented and highly intelligent and very creative in my biological family by far. You feel me? Because, man, on social media, I get more support from people. I get more support from people on social media than people that I've known since a child, which are biological relatives and lame ass fucking classmates. I don't even talk to my lame ass classmates because they're so one track minded too. Like, for real, man. This shit is fucking ridiculous. How can one track minded people live with themselves, conforming to a slave owner organization, being miserable and shit, and don't do things that make them happy, right? You see, the truth is, man, 99.9% of biological relatives and your lame ass classmates that you know since you were a child, they don't give a fuck about what makes you happy, the things that you desire to go for, because for one, they hating on your ass. They hate that you are very creative, bro. They hate that you are very talented, sis. They hate the goddesses and god stars who don't fit in the slave owner matrix, bro. They hate the goddesses and god stars who are so talented, who are just way beyond comprehension of slave owner society norms, that these biological folks and classmates that known these spiritual folks for a long time, but don't even take the time to get to really know them through their talents, because talent is what expresses a person's personality. A lot of my relatives don't know me like that because they don't take the time to get to know my talents and my self-independent business talents. They don't give a fuck about that shit because, for one, they're so one-track minded, man. Like, this shit is so real, bro. Like, for real, man. I don't like these individuals who be like, I don't like these biological relatives and classmates who be like, man, I don't like these individuals who don't try to do something for themselves, all because the person chooses to not fit in the slave owner society norm, working a regular ass 9 to 5 military, or be a policeman and shit, or be in a fraternity and shit. But when an individual goes for a self-independent business and goes long term with that, oh, that biological relative or classmate is hating like a motherfucker. You know, I don't even have phone contact with lame ass classmates and lame ass biological relatives that know me for a long time, that never even try to help me with my talents. And I got help from people that's not even biologically related to me, and people that was never my classmates. But that's just all facts, man.